Okay. Awesome. So here's what I would offer. We have a really small group today, and so I'd like to make this as interactive as possible. If something comes to mind, you say, I don't get it. I don't like it. How do I deal with this? How do I deal with that? I don't know what everyone's role is around business development, networking, sales. So, if you have questions about the things I'm saying, just chime right in. It's a really small group. I'd love to have the conversation. I hate being a talking head or talking head and shoulders, whatever. And this is a subject that really bothers people in some ways. And so I will tell you just a little bit about me is that I'm a ham. I'm an only child. I'm a ham. So A, I love to speak. B, I love to be around people because it's all about the relationship for me. And I'm a total extrovert and I talk to think. So that's why networking really works for me. And I have a lot of fun at it. In fact, I was at a networking event last night. I came home and I felt like I was higher than a kite because I got to get the human energy. And I do that a lot. So for the introverts in the crowd, there are tips and tricks at the end for networking to really satisfy both introverts, extroverts, or ambiverts. So we'll go from there. But this is all about BD. Does not stand for bad drinks. It stands for boozy drinks or big drinks or bodacious drinks or whatever you want it to stand for, or even business development. So the plan today is to talk about brand you, and we'll go through that in a minute. We're going to talk about relationship building in the context of applying your own brand to relationship building, business development, or networking. And then we're going to talk about how networking needs not be stressful at all. And I'm going to give you tips and tricks, as I said. So let's talk a little bit about brand you. So think about this. What's a brand? You can think, I'm sure each one of your firms has a brand. You have a name, you have a logo, you may have words or value words on your website. You have a website and there's colors and all those kinds of things involved. You also have a brand as an individual, and it's the way that others perceive you and then the expectations they form from that perception. And it happens, your brand is all about, you brand yourself whenever you dress for a party, when you write a proposal, when you post on social media, it's all about your own brand. So if you take a look at me, my brand is in the way I dress, the colors I wear, what I'm comfortable in, what sits behind me on my shelf. And as these go, this is number 3 of 4. So it's potential that this is going to change the next time you see me. So I'm also, part of it is keeping it interesting. And your own personal brand is also what people say about you after you walk out of the room. So you want to think about that. And so when you think about me in my business, my consulting business, my brand is, I leave you better for having met me, and I will do what I say I will. So my tagline in business is taking businesses from great to exceptional. So if we take this, I take my 3 words, we're going to work on 3 words for a minute. You take the 3 words is for me, the ones that describe me most are relationship, integrity, and better. So those are the 3 words that really describe my brand. And I've had, the reason I know that people recognize me for relationships being really important is I had someone actually interview people that I used to work with. And that's what they said almost 100% of the time. The relationship is the most important thing. She's all about it. So you think about that, and my brand has changed over time as I've changed what I do or changed who I'm working with. And that's okay to have that change. And the brand is the how, the why, and the what of you. So what I want to do is take just a couple of minutes and have you think about 3 words that describe your own personal brand, not the brand of the company you work for. And then I just want you to share them with everybody. So I would do a breakout, except that there's not so many people, so we can do that. So I would say take just a couple of minutes and think about that, jot them down for later. And what are the 3 words that describe you as a brand, your personal brand?
Well, I sound like a golden retriever. I am.
Okay. All right. Share. Do share.
I wrote down friendly, reliable, and capable.
Okay. You know, I'm not so sure a golden retriever is always capable. Sometimes you're just spastic. That's awesome. Thank you, Carrie.
Oh my gosh.
Who would you like to have go next? You get to pick, Carrie.
I love that.
All right. I want to hear what EB wrote.
We're still not hearing you.
I'm sorry, Evie. Do you want to put it in the chat maybe? Your voice will be missed though. Knowledgeable, empathetic.
Okay, great.
I love that.
Excellent. All right. Who would you like to have go next, EB? You can put it in the chat. Gretchen.
I put thoughtful, smart, and fun.
Awesome. Okay. And who would you like to have go next?
Let's have Brittany go next.
Ooh, well, that's perfect because I stole one of your words as well. So mine was resilient, curious, and fun.
Okay.
Just hoping if I put it out there that those will become true. So.
It will, trust me. And Emily, you're left.
I put relational, creative, and charming.
Awesome. Okay, so I want you all to hang on to your words, and we're going to do a little something to help you think about where do you apply your brand. So where else can you apply your brand? And this is in a networking sense, a business development sense, or anything that might, so part of what the description of this was about is, how would you like to have a massive raise or a great promotion? Well, networking will get you that too. I can't guarantee that it's going to be immediate, but having a network, a really good network, means you can move around in the industry if you need to. I know architecture is a little bit incestuous, that people move around. I mean, at least in Seattle, they move from Callison to NBBJ to CGF to, and back again. So, but you might think about what groups might fit both your companies and your brand. So there's places to go for networking business development, like nonprofits and boards and committees. And believe me, boards and committees and nonprofits, there's a networking component there. They expect people to network and get to know each other. You think about industry groups that fit your brand and that their values and their brand fit you. You might think about places like Provisors or BNI. Are you aware of either one of those? So really interesting groups. Provisors is a group that it's very networking oriented, referral oriented. So once you get in there, people know your business well, and they're looking for referrals for you, as you are looking for referrals for them because you know their business. So it's heavily in the Seattle area, it's heavily attorney based, but attorneys know people. And part of business development is knowing that if someone's not a client, they might know someone who is, right? That's the whole thing. BNI is also a referral group. I find them slightly more militant than Provisors, as they want you to come every week and bring someone along to grow the group and to do referrals. And if you are going to be absent, you have to send someone in your place. And I was kind of like, hey, I'm busy doing stuff for me. Why would I do that for you? And that seems like a lot. So that did not appeal to me, but for some it might. So, and then there's also Toastmasters. So a double whammy here is learning how to deliver public speaking and meeting people that are learning the same thing you are, and are just as afraid of public speaking as you might be, because it's the number 2 fear under the fear of flying, right? So, any questions or thoughts about that? Where else can you apply your brand? And to get business, network, whatever. Anything else? Questions, thoughts?
I just thought it might be helpful. You told me about a couple groups that I love, like beyond SEA, the crew. The
Oh,
crew
yeah.
network was it's amazing. They
So
just
Commercial Real Estate Women is a really great group. They're more than 5,000 strong across the United States. You will find developers, architects, contractors, subcontractors, insurance brokers, title company people, you name it, anything that has to do with commercial real estate, they're in it. And a classic story of how crew works is there was a woman I know that was the head of an architecture office or running, I can't remember exactly, she business development for an architecture firm. And she had just moved there, and her managing principal said, she said, I want to be a member of crew, will you pay for the dues? And he said, well, I don't know, what can crew do? And she said, well, what do you want crew to do? And he said, get me an in at Coca-Cola. And she called a crew member that she knew in Atlanta, and they got into Coca-Cola. That's what crew does for their members. And she's worked through it. She's been on the board of crew, and she's done it, so she's very well known. But it's kind of, he wrote the check, right? It wasn't inexpensive, but that's the power of that woman network there. That's what they're there about, to help the success of other women. There's also NAWIC, which is the National Association of Women in Construction. They're a little bit different than crew, more contractor heavy, obviously. National Association of Women. There's NAIOP. That's a big, property owners, developers. They work with architects all the time. There is ULI is very popular. There are other groups, AIA, obviously, for architecture firms. And the thing that's really nice about people like crew is they do a national conference every year. And so it's going to be all over the United States. So you get to meet people from the sponsoring chapter. You get to meet a lot of people from there. I was a crew member for a really long time in Seattle. I was on the board. Really liked it. This particular chapter in Seattle has an amazing women in leadership program. I'm not sure about what other chapters have, but I'm thinking that this one was probably the model. So, it's pretty well, it's really well done. Are you in it, Brittany?
I am.
Okay, yeah.
They're extraordinary content. Yeah.
So those are the other kinds of groups to think of, to network. And it will come down to, networking is hard. I will tell you that crew specifically, I found, and I joined it a long time ago, really hard to get to know people there. Women can be cliquey, just saying. And Seattle is particularly cliquey, whether you're female or male. So it was tough to get to know. The thing is just keep at it, just keep at it. NAIOP is fairly welcoming. Although you're gonna have to stand in the room with a bunch of men that bullshit a lot. So excuse my French.
Can confirm.
They're doing a lot of posturing,
Can confirm.
yeah, pulling on their jacket and blah, 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 blah. So really nice.
Jess, I just had to interrupt quickly because I'm just really thankful that we don't have to worry about that in SDA. When you hear that it's like we have so many good eggs.
Yeah.
But I think because that is a big challenge when you work in like a male dominated industry. How do you break through that posturing or that kind of macho? I hang out a lot with contractors and design builders, and they have a different culture. So how can I kind of have a strategy for I don't want to get down to their level all the time, but I engage with them in a with camaraderie, I guess.
I was gonna ask that too. Yeah.
So I will tell you what I found worked for me. So a little reminder of my background. I'm an engineer by education. I worked in heavy civil construction. I worked for a DOT. I worked for corporate real estate at Microsoft. My job was to interface with contractors all the time and get them to do what we needed them to do. So I think I did pretty well with it, feedback wise. I did a seminar many years ago, and one of the things that was talked about there was it was 130 women in a room with one guy who was running it, and it sounds weird, but I can explain in more detail, but he talked about what happens between men and women, and it was all based in the fact that, and I agree with this, that men and women operate differently. They just do. We're wired differently. It's not a bad thing. It's not, and neither one of us is more or less. We just operate differently. And he talked about men and ego and women and ego. And what I learned there that worked for me is to figure out how to make friends with that ego or how to work with it and not push on it. Because frankly, men are much better at pushing back with their ego than we are. And so I worked with a guy or for a guy who was not nice, and his ego filled the entire building. Okay. Every day he showed up, and I left the company and woke up about 6 months later and tried to figure out, why do I feel so different? It's like, oh, I'm not trying to walk on eggshells around this guy. So, he was tough, and he wouldn't hesitate to yell at you or fire you just because he was pissed off. So it was working with his ego, but also setting boundaries. So he would get to things like, he would start yelling at me and I'd look at him and say, I'll be back when you're in a better mood. Bye. And I wasn't poking at his ego. I was just saying, no, you don't get to do that with me. So it's boundaries, and also understanding where their ego is going to fire them up to do something and being able to say, here, go right by me. It's kind of the jujitsu of relationships, or it's Aikido, that's using everyone's own momentum against them, right? But that's really what I found. The other piece is, for me, it's all about the relationship. So I'm trying to get to know them. What do they want? What are they doing? And also being able to set boundaries. So one of the things that would happen a lot is that there was this thing called extra work at force account. And it was hours, time and materials. And the contractors all wanted it from the state because they made a lot of money at it. So they'd come running at you across the grade. And I was a resident engineer out on a dirt project, right? And they would come running and say, this thing happened and we have to go to extra work at force account. And I would cross my arms and say, how long have you known about this? And they would say, all morning. I said, great, you can give me 2 hours to figure out what the answer is. I'll be back. And it was kind of like, I'm acknowledging that you knew it, but I'm also not going to give in to you because you're telling me you think that's your revenue generator. So it's really working around what is important to them and not poking them in the place that they're sensitive, if you can figure that out. And I know that's kind of vague, but it's not having to get down on their level. It's being aware of how they operate. And then in some cases, making them manage by knowing how they operate and getting them to do that. What's important to them. The posturing, I said that the posturing in a NAOP group I said that semi-facetiously. You just have to be aware that there are people in the industry, and women included, that really need to be heard and noticed. And I was at an event last night and this woman was there. She's on the board of governors of this club that I had joined. And it's kind of like, okay, I get it. You're in international law. You've done a lot of things. You're really important. I don't need to hear that story for the 4th time. Okay. I got it. I got it the first time. So it was some need to be, she was posturing a little bit about, see how important I am. And so you have to remember that comes from a place of insecurity and fear, and not to kick them in it. Be patient with it. Does that help, Emily? Okay, great.
It's my audio.
You did it.
Did you have a question, Evie?
No, but I
Okay. All right. Let's talk a minute about BD and sales, because networking works into this. And I have found in architecture and technology that BD and sales get wound up on each other. And marketing and BD and sales all get used in the same context. And it's kind of weird, I think. So if you think about BD, it's all about relationships. Sales is all about relationships, but they can be confused with each other. So I used to call business development rock flipping. I'm flipping over rocks looking for potential clients, right? I want to form a relationship with them. I'm not really interested in selling them anything if I'm working in BD. Now, the problem where things get confused is that sales and BD get done by the same person. And so that's where it gets munched together. But it's really, it's a lot like farming, where sales is hunting. I'm looking for prey, right? I'm going to get myself something, but farming is I'm going to grow something, I'm going to nurture it, I'm going to water it, I'm going to fertilize it, whatever I need to do. Still about identifying clients and developing relationships. And it's still a process. And sales can look the same, and it is a process, but it's more focused on a purchase. And BD and sales are meant to work hand in hand. So BD says, hey, Carrie, I've got this potential client. And Carrie, the salesperson, says, great. I'm going to work with you. And if we have a proposal, we'll work together on it. But the proposal is the sale piece. And, you know, for example, going out and connecting with people that the firm might want to do work with, business with, and that would be a good client. They'll develop the relationship. And when that's right, when the time is right, they'll help the team respond. But this final sale could be handled by the principal in charge. Now, this is where everything gets munged together, because the principal in charge is probably also going out and doing BD. And that's in small firms, that's particularly true. The other piece is that all of this is used interchangeably with marketing and sales, so it creates confusion. And keeping in mind, though, that in networking, in BD, and in sales, your target is going to expect you to sell them something at some point. And in some cases, they may even ask you to sell them something with an RFP. So keep that in mind. So the relationship focus, though, is the easy button in all of this. And Emily, did you have a question? Sorry, where'd you go?
Yeah, I have a question about this because, yeah, in the seller doer model, this gets very muddled.
Yes.
So do you think, from your perspective, do you think there's a place in the seller doer model for a non-technical business development person in a firm, which like is probably my role, but it's been difficult in the seller doer model because I don't want to, because it's still traditionally they want to have relationships with those doing the work. So what you would see that, like, I guess my question is, how would a business development person fit into that model?
Sure. So think about this. The business development person, some of the best have a great knack for knowing when that seller doer should come in, because the seller doer, they're gonna do the technical proposal, the scope of work, all that kind of stuff. But you as the BD person are gonna find the potential, right? So it's I think we're at the point where I need to introduce you to Brittany. She's our technical expert, and we'll be doing the work. Both go in together. Brittany has the conversation, works that all out, and then you can see what kinds of technical questions she might answer. People will ask. Now you've learned something, so you can scooch that technical expertise out just a little bit. And so, but you still have the opportunity to form a relationship. What'll happen is the client potentially will call either one of you the next time they want to do work. And Brittany,
which I think is a strength, because
yes,
because then they're, yeah, like if we're trying to zip up the relationship, if there's a problem with the project or something, having multiple points of contact. I don't need to tell you this, but
no,
I don't
I'm
need to
agreeing with
convince
you.
you.
The other piece is that as the BD person, you also have a chance to keep your firm top of mind with that client. Brittany's doing a project. She's working on it. It's going, and the client that you talk to may not be the project manager for that particular project. They may have assigned it to someone else, but you have the opportunity to maintain that relationship and keep your firm top of mind. That's business development, is keeping your firm top of mind. And we'll talk about a couple of things that you can do after networking and starting to form a relationship to keep yourself top of mind. That's kind of, it's hard for people to get used to when they've been doing it all. And it's hard for them to let go of a BD person because, well, how do I know when to bring me in? Well, let's talk about when that is. Let's agree. It's a process. All processes have steps. Sometimes somebody shows up at steps 4. So, all right. There is, as I said, there is an expectation of a sale. You know, again, RFPs are the biggest. Hey, sell me something. Sell me your services on this. So there's always an expectation of sale through business development at some point. Who knows when, but at some point. So let's talk a little bit about building relationships. So one of the things is, and this is kind of a duh, but people forget a lot, is you got to leverage your existing clients. You know, and this is where it comes into keeping the relationship warm. So it's the least expensive and easiest business to acquire. It takes no marketing whatsoever. It takes Brittany doing really good work and saying, is there anything else you'd like us to do for you today? That's it. And then she calls Emily and says, Emily, you should talk to, you know, the principal here because their project manager is saying something else is coming up and let's confirm it. Then what's your view on the client? You got to look internally to say, are you only there for the big stuff? Right? Are you only gonna work with them if they are doing something big? So, and we'll talk a little bit more about that again in a second. You got to understand them and their business. That's what BD is really good at. They understand who the client is, what their business is, what the challenges that they're getting into, you know, why they buy, particularly from you and your company. Why do they buy your services? What is it about you that they really like? And so they'll come to you over and over and over again. So, and then what can you do that's unexpected? So this goes in, if you're only there for the big stuff, okay. But can you go in and consider adding value whether you make money or not? Can you go in and make it so they really can't live without you because you do something special for them all the time? And so it's really your view on the client. Are you only there for the big stuff? And believe me, this is more common than you would know. People say, oh, I'm not gonna spend time working on blah, 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 because you know, they might be slow to pay, but they give when they have a big project, we'll go after them. When they have a big project, everybody's going after them. But what they will remember is that you sent flowers on someone's anniversary or a card, or, you know, this is a little bit of cost, no revenue involved, but it's the relationship piece that you build, keep it in front, top of mind. You sent, you know, baby cakes from Trophy Cupcakes or whatever, you know, on a celebration of a big win, whatever, you know, completion of a building, anything. So really the unexpected stuff is the stuff that keeps you top of mind. And then your own mindset around all of that. And what are you challenged by when you're building a relationship? Oh, you know, I'm just the salesperson. Okay. What are you challenged by? And how do you think about what value you bring? Because again, if you do things that are unexpected, people are going to talk about you. And it'll go across the industry eventually, and they'll say, you know, we really like working with Gretchen because, you know, every year on my birthday and my anniversary, I get a card from her. She remembers that stuff. She knows me. She hears me. She sees me as a person, not just a paycheck or a work check. Questions or thoughts on any of those?
I love that you brought up, you know, sending a gift basket or something when the project's done. We had a project with our biggest client, and design took 4 years and construction took 7. And it was just like, it was a nightmare. Everything that could go wrong. There was an issue with the windows and they had to pull out a ton of windows. It cost like $300,000. It was just like a nightmare. And we sent them a wine basket for that project when it was done. We're like, you probably need it after the last 10, 11 years. And they love that. So I love, you have good ideas.
So Emily, in your comment about having PM, you know, knowing who PMs are talking to and keeping them a central point. So there, you know, a CRM system can be as simple as an Excel spreadsheet and as complicated as Salesforce, which I wouldn't recommend. There is something in between. I use a thing called Cloze, CLOZE.com. And it gets all the contacts in there. It does things like reminds you to touch base with them. You can send emails, you attach your text in your phone and your email account. And it's a place to say, when have we had conversations? And it keeps track of every conversation you've had. And that is some data entry stuff. It's dead cheap, works beautifully. I use it for my sales process and part of what I do. And so that's a place, and again, it's the relationship with the PM to get them to say, who are you talking to? So that we can make sure that we're I'm going to keep you top of mind with that client while you're off doing your work. That's the other key. But a simple CRM system, it's not hard to know, it's not hard to use. Something like that is a really handy thing to have, so that you know when was the last time you touched someone, and it'll remind you, hey, it's been 3 months since you called them or emailed them. And it's a really nice system to help. And LinkedIn is another one, but LinkedIn doesn't keep track of all that stuff. But if you use them in tandem, it's really nice, because as you're looking for leads, you can connect with people on LinkedIn, or whatever you need to do. So does that answer your question? Does that help? Okay, cool. All right, so networking. We're going to talk a little bit about networking here, because it's not that bad. Really, it's not that bad. Who here likes to network?
I think you're the only one.
Probably, yeah, Edie's like,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm here for the food. That's all.
And that's okay. That's okay. All right. So here's some tips and tricks. So, a funny story. Let's see. Self-driving. Yeah. Mind meld. Gotcha. So I have a coach. He's a business development coach, and we talk a lot about running a sales funnel and all these different things, which may or may not be appealing, and I'm certainly happy to talk about what that is. And because it's fairly simple. When he was first starting out, he had a coach that said, here's a strategy. You go to a networking event, and if you talk to someone, and this is the saga of a process going really badly. So, if you talk to them and there's somebody you really want to follow up with, get an interesting fact from them and drop their card in your right pocket. If you talk to somebody who's a complete tool and you don't want anything to do with them later, put it in your left pocket. And then periodically go to the bathroom and write down the interesting fact on the back of the card on the ones in your right pocket. What you will do later that he didn't do is take the left-hand pocket cards and throw them away. Now, number one is, he said, I'm sure people thought I had IBS because I was in the bathroom all the time, right? Okay. The second one is that he was standing in the bathroom throwing away business cards when the people whose cards they were walked in the door, which is why you don't do it at the networking. Don't do it there, okay? So that's it. Right pocket, left pocket's handy. The problem is that not all of us wear jackets all the time. So you kind of have whatever right pocket, left pocket, system you get, make that work for you. So number one is when you go to a networking event, give yourself a 3 connection limit. Okay, 3 and only 3. So this is a little bit of reverse psychology, saying I only get 3, so they better be good. Okay, now it's not going to keep you from meeting a bunch of tools. So, but you don't have to connect with them, right? And really, honestly, if you can, get the attendee list in advance so you can target those 3. Many groups do this. I know that NAIOP locally, if you register on their website, they give you a list of who's registered. And it's a scrolling list. And you can say, oh yeah, I want to meet with, David Reeves. And I haven't seen him for a long time. And last time I talked to him, he had some really good work. So get that. If there's a speaker and you don't want to hear him, leave. Go there for the networking and the food and the booze, if that's that's your thing. But you've got to make your 3 connections first. Okay. The big thing is, and this was really interesting, is I did a networking, something similar to this for a contractor with a lot of really young employees. And what they didn't know is that at networking events, everyone expects you to network. That's what they're there for. But don't expect somebody to hand you a roll of plans and a contract on the way out the door. And that was a real expectation. That was a light bulb for all of them. So that, you have to make your 3 connections, but only 3. Only 3. So remember that networking doesn't equal a contract. It may eventually, but not that day, not that night, and not that event. So every event approach can vary. So when you go in, You know, you can decide you can see the you want to see the speaker. It may not have speakers. It may have, you know, there may be tables of people to talk to. So you can say, who do I want to talk to? Who do I not want to talk to? It all depends on what the event is. And the big thing is that you want to follow up through drip marketing, but I want to go back to the event itself. Lots of times people don't know what to say at events. So there's a few standard questions. If there's a speaker, Gretchen, what interested you in the speaker today? Okay. Have you heard them before? What do you want to take away from the presentation? If there is no speaker and there's a collection of people at different tables, so what wine, and it's wine tasting, what wine are you most interested in? Red, white, rosé. What's your favorite? What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? My problem is I don't drink wine, so I'm not going to go to a wine tasting. I don't drink wine anymore, and I'm not going to go to a wine tasting. So if people ask me, "What's your favorite wine?" I'm going to say vodka. So, but those are questions, and the other thing is, if it's about the relationship, is, you know, what brought you here? Who are you looking to meet? Is there someone I can introduce you to that I might know here? Because chances are you're going to know somebody, right? I mean, my husband always says, we can't go anywhere without you knowing someone. It's just how I am. And the thing is that he's in BD, so we can't go anywhere without one of us or both of us knowing someone there. It's kind of odd. So it's really thinking about those kind of questions. It's not, you know, hey, what do you do? Which you can ask, but the whole thing is, you know, this is about a relationship. So how do we further that? And again, for me, I want to leave you better for having met me. So who can I introduce you to that I might know? Who are you looking for? What kind of people are you looking for? The other piece, getting out of the conversation. Okay. So number one is, if there are two people talking, you can walk up to them, but ask if it's okay to join, because it may be a personal conversation. Look for threes. Getting out of the conversation is, you say, hey, you know, if you're looking at this and going, oh my God, just kill me. You know, I don't have anything in common with these people. I don't know that I want to know them. Don't force your business card on them. If you have a drink in your hand and it's fairly empty, go say, I'm going to go refresh my drink. Or there's somebody over there I need to say hello to. Or, you know, something along those lines. It's really kind of innocuous. But don't say I have to refresh my drink when your wine glass is full. It's kind of along the lines of throwing people's business cards away while they're in the room. Right? So that's really, you know, that's more tips and tricks around getting the conversation going. And you can ask, you know, are you originally from Seattle? Not everybody is. Oh, wow, you know, you grew up in Seattle. And for me, I can say I was born here, but I didn't grow up here. And I find that was really hard when we moved here, because I didn't know anybody, and it's hard to get into the business world. Or, yeah, I know, you know, I went to Ingram High School too, you know, whatever, you know, you can find a common ground. Yeah, Brittany.
I had a question. So when you go through these standard questions, like sometimes I kind of get stuck on a next question. Do you have any hacks or tips or tricks? I know, like they say, you know, kind of demur the last word, or kind of just like keep them talking. Do you have, because sometimes that works and then sometimes it's not. So any hacks when you're out of questions?
Yeah, so when you're out of questions, it may be time for the conversation to end. You know, so there's some instinct there.
Yeah.
And you know, and the other thing is that you can also say, hey, if you run out of questions, say, you know, I've usurped enough of your time. This is a networking event. Let's go network.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've taken a lot of your time, and I don't want to keep you from networking with somebody you need to see. If they don't seem to show any interest in stopping talking, you can ask them, what's your plans for the weekend? Unless it's a Monday. Or what did you do over the weekend? Do you like the Blue Angels? I mean, Seafair's coming up this weekend. Last night, there were a lot of questions about what kind of plans you have this weekend. Are you going to see the Blue Angels? Because the club that I was attending the event for is on the 76th floor of Columbia Tower. So they have an event for, are you going to do the event with the Blue Angels? You know, or, you know, are you going to, it's really interesting. I haven't heard anybody going out on a boat to watch the Blue Angels tomorrow.
No.
It's weird. and they're not going to close bridges, and very strange. Anyway, so that's the kind of thing. But the best thing is I've taken up enough of your time. It's a network event. Let's go network. And that gets you out of it too.
I love that. That's perfect.
Yeah. So following up through drip marketing, this is keeping yourself top of mind. So that's getting the interesting fact. Okay. So my coach and I, who are we both are very irreverent. We call this post-event LinkedIn ho ho ho. Okay. And so you go to LinkedIn and you have an interesting fact written down on your business card. So if you met me, what you would find out is that I have a small dog named Peanut, and I'm a sailor in peanut sales. And if you ask me what I'm doing this weekend, I'm going sailing with Peanut. So when you follow up with me or do a connection, you say, hey, Jess, really nice to meet you the other night. I hope you have a really good time with Peanut sailing. Because you wrote that down on the back of the card. And I go, oh, she paid attention. That's cool. And then I say, yeah, I'll connect with you. And then if you're really working it, you're going to go back, because once I connect, then hopefully you've got my email, because hopefully the LinkedIn is updated with your work email. If it's not, do that now. And you'll get a hold of me and say, let's have coffee. 3 months, a month, whatever. Or, hey, I've got an interesting article about what we talked about. Or I just read this really great book and, I'm recommending it. Or, whatever, here's a white paper that my company did on the thing, on window mullions, whatever, and I'm pulling stuff out of the air, right? So it's, I'd love to take you through this really cool project we're working on. Whatever you can do. And so and it doesn't have to be every day, all day. It doesn't have to be every week. But just keeping that yourself top of mind, saying, I heard what you had to say, hope to see you at another NAIOP event in the future, whatever. I'll be looking for you, not stalking you, but I'll be looking for you. So, yeah. Any other questions about that kind of stuff? Networking, being in the room?
I do have one more. What are your thoughts on when you meet somebody? I know a lot of people are kind of veering away from the what do you do question, trying not to identify so much with your work. And what's your thoughts on that? And what's the alternatives? Like, what are you passionate about? What do you love to do outside of work? Are those kind of...
The question I use is, when you're not working, what do you do for fun?
Boom. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's the interesting fact. If you're asking me when you aren't working, what do you do for fun? I sail. I hang out with my dog and now my cats, and I sail.
Okay, that's perfect.
I have a big wooden boat that I work on a lot, which is not the fun part. Sailing's the fun part. But yeah, that's the interesting fact that comes in there, so, what's the best vacation you've ever been on? People love to talk about their vacations. They love it. And then you get into, so do you have any recommendation? Hey, I'm thinking, well, the best vacation I've ever been on is when we went to Rome and we did blah, 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 blah. And you go, I'm planning a trip to Rome next year. What's your favorite? What would you recommend? Any tips and tricks on getting into the Colosseum, buying tickets or whatever that is, So would you have any advice for somebody that's never been there before? Any other thoughts, questions, curiosity, things you're curious about? Okay. Whoops, sorry, I'm skipping ahead. Wow, technology problem. Okay, so the key points here: know your own brand, be aware of it, know that it changed. Find your groups for passive networking, which is I show up, therefore I am networking. So, being improvisers or being on a board or committee. And then, networking doesn't need to be stressful. 3 connections, that's it. You can go home. That's all. I mean, 3 is a great number. If you want to do more, do more. Don't do less. But definitely 3 is a manageable. If you go to one networking event a year or a month, that's 36 new people in your network at the end of the year. I mean, that's pretty good. And again, remember the whole networking thing is that if you get to know 3 people and you're connected to them on LinkedIn, how many hundreds of people are you actually have access to? and looking at, and hey, and you know what? Don't be embarrassed about going through their LinkedIn connections. In fact, if you want to connect to me and you want to go through my LinkedIn connections, pick 3. And if I feel like it's a good, I know them well. I have a big network on LinkedIn. I don't know everybody really well. Okay. I mean, I got almost 2,000 connections on LinkedIn. It's obscene. And that was from some recruiting work that I did. But if you see 3 people that you want to know, I would be happy to introduce you to them if I know them well enough to do that. And if I know you well enough to do that. So it will take a conversation, some coffee, or, lunch over Zoom or in person to do that. But I'm happy to do that. And when a lot of people don't open their network because they're concerned about who's looking and who might want to get to your connections. But if you're not introducing and people are just looking at people and then saying, hey, I know Jess Hickey, at some point they're going to come back and say, who is this Yahoo trying to get hold of me? It's like, I don't know. Don't answer. Don't answer them. So happy to do that. But go through, it's unabashed. This is LinkedIn is for networking. That's what they built it for. So do it that way. Go through your connections. The one thing I really would, as I mentioned before, is update your contact information on LinkedIn to your work email and phone number and your company website. This is a professional network. I see so many people that have their Gmail out there, and it's kind of like, I don't want to send you something on Gmail because I have no idea how often you check it. But if I have your work email, I'm pretty sure you're looking at it. Your chances are you'll answer it more quickly. And the other piece on the LinkedIn etiquette, which you may or may not know, is always write a note when you do a connection. Always, always, always. Even if it's just, hey, I thought your profile was really, really interesting. I would love to connect because we work in the same industry. I'm at somebody who's one of my favorite people reached out to me, and she was cruising through LinkedIn. She said, I think you might be interested to know, can we have coffee? I'm like, sure. So we did by Zoom, and now we know each other really well. And I refer her all the time for stuff because I know what she does. I really like her. I know she's really a good person, but it was so bizarre to have it. She's, hey, can we have coffee? Okay. And he was interested in what I did. It was interesting what she did. So those are some other takeaways from the whole thing. All right. So what questions do you have? Any more? I don't see anything in the chat, but happy to talk about any of that or anything else you want to talk about. We've got some time.
I just wanted to, I have a question, but I also wanted to share something. I was reading a book, Skip the Line, and it's amazing. Basically, he veers away from 10,000 hours, and he lives a model of 10,000 experiments. And he had a section in there about he does a weekly 6-minute marketing effort, and so he kind of does the same thing as a list of people he meets from these connections and these conferences. He puts them all on the list, like when he met them, and then same thing like you said, Jess, like gathering interesting facts. So there's notes for these connections, and every week he spends 6 minutes and he picks 2, and he just goes down the list, and he'll just randomly reach out to them. So it would just be like, okay, I know Jess likes sailboats, and so like if he came across something like, hey, I thought that this would be interesting to you, so something along the lines of something that would interest them, but not asking for anything. Hey, I'm just thinking about you, just reminded me of you, hope all is well. And he just does that, and I thought that was super fascinating. And so
if you think about that, that's a really great point. 6 minutes is 1/10 of 1 hour. It's nothing. It's no time at all. And again, the reverse psychology is you only get 6 minutes. So you just pick 2 and do that. You don't, and set a timer if you have to. But it becomes then one of those things that there's some urgency to get that done, and it's not as hard. Right? Because there's, oh my God, every week, I will tell you, every week I tell myself I'm going to start posting on LinkedIn, and every week I don't. Okay, I just don't. I don't have time. You need to post at a certain time. I don't. People say certain time and certain day. I don't care about the day, but because I have East Coast clients, I need to post early in the morning. Well, I'm not at my computer at 6. I'm at my computer at 6:30, which is fine, but I'm launching into my day by 6:30. And so I'm woefully behind in LinkedIn presence. So, and there's a lot of noise on LinkedIn. So it better be really, really good when you get it out there. But do also, remember that if I'm in your network and I see something that I really like from you, then all of a sudden you're going to be exposed to mine, because I'm going to comment on it. I'm going to share it, do whatever. So there are things like that too. But again, limited time, little tiny bits of time here and there. You might be taking a coffee break and you write a quick email note to somebody and then you're done. One thing, one business development thing off my plate.
Yeah.
Really, really simple.
Gretchen
The
put
thing
in
is,
the
leave a
chat box.
voicemail while you're in the car.
Gretchen
I mean,
put a comment in the
Yeah.
chat box, and she says, I love that. Is there someone I can introduce you to approach? She loved that.
Okay, so there's another one. Hoping we can do this networking in person. If it needs to be digital, would you say coffee over Zoom is effective? A little awkward, okay. Yeah, coffee, drink, water, whatever you want to do, again, remember that. So this, when we started out, when I said I'd rather see you eating than see your dark screen or camera. Do remember that we used to meet in person and eat in front of each other. and so this is so weird to me that people are like, oh, I can't eat on camera. Okay, I mean, I struggle with that. So, lunch, coffee, a snack, a pastry, and just say, hey, if we were in person, we would be shoving food in our mouth across the table from each other. Just remember that, and yes, it's because you see yourself eating. Turn your self view off. That's it. That's the quickest thing I can say. Yeah, Zoom, coffee over Zoom is as effective. It can be a little awkward, but what I found was really awkward is really bad software for virtual events like a NAOP breakfast. Now, NAOP had really good software. It was really nice. You could move around tables, you'd show up and talk to each other. Bless you, Emily. And it was pretty good, given that it was all virtual. It got a little wearing sometimes, because sometimes you want to get in at a table and you can't do that virtually, but you can in person, just walk over and stand next to their chair, right? So more and more people are going in person. That whole thing has got to be comfortable for you. If it's not, and you prefer Zoom or Teams or whatever you use, do that. I mean, I think people are pretty used to it. They don't necessarily like it, but they're pretty used to it. So.
I like that. Well, along that, I had a question on your thoughts on, so like let's use the example of the LinkedIn, and if it's somebody in similar industry and you wanted to make that connection. I know there are some people that when they do that, they're now sending gift cards for coffee or actually delivering coffee, and like, hey, if you want to give me your address, I'll Uber Eats a coffee over. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's kind of overkill? You think it's a nice gesture?
So,
Creepy?
so my personal takeaway from that is I would be completely creeped out if somebody asked me for my address. And, that I didn't know, that I was starting to get to know. If any one of you said, hey, let's have coffee, I'm going to send you coffee, can you send me your address? I wouldn't have a problem with it. I know who you are. So you got to kind of use your instinct about it. And, it's a nice gesture. It is hard because not everybody's in their office. And so this was particularly difficult in 2020 when everybody went home, right? And there was some sales work I was doing. And number one is their voicemail box at the office was full, couldn't get their cell phone. And so how do I get a hold of somebody if they're not answering my email? Because the only way I can get them is email. And so, we thought about, a lot of us talked about, there were many people that did personal notes. I'm kind of like, really? You're going to try and get someone's home address to send them a note, because they're not going to get it at the office. Not for the next 6-8 months. They're not going to get it. Mailboxes got full, mail got thrown away, all that kind of stuff. So, but going back to your question, it's going to be an instinctive thing. You're going to have to just kind of figure out how comfortable are they with that. You know, and it could be, hey, I'd love to Uber you some coffee when we have coffee. Would you mind sharing your home address? It's okay if you're not comfortable with it. You got to be really sensitive to how people feel.
Yeah. Well, I'll just put it out there. I'm accepting coffee from everybody at all times of the day. So if you need my address.
I would prefer, thanks, Emily. Call anytime, email anytime. I prefer chocolate, but you know, that's me.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for the time. It's
All
always
right,
great to get
guys.
together with you. And I will get these slides out to Brittany, and you'll have them all. And you know, again, please don't hesitate to reach out if you got a question, or you're kind of like, hey, I'm gonna go to this networking thing. Will you go with me? Happy to consider it.
Oh, that's such a
Always
nice-
good. Always good to be a wing person.
Mhm.
a nice
Thank you.
gesture.
You're welcome.
I agree with Emily. You are a powerhouse. So, so thank you guys, and we'll circle back around with the recording and all the fun documents. And I think that is it for now. So hopefully we'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Happy Thursday.
Good seeing y'all.
Bye.
Bye.